This is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is time for public participation during the meeting as indicated on the agenda. Upon request, the superintendent of the district shall make a reasonable accommodation for a person with disabilities to be able to participate in this meeting. And just as a reminder, because this is an active board meeting, if you could just check your cell phones to make sure that they are silent so as not to disturb the animals up here, that would be awesome. Thank you. All right, so we will start the meeting with a roll call. Oh.
Mr. Albrecht?
Here.
Mr. Arnold?
Here.
Mrs. Bruderly? Here. Mrs. Greatorex?
Here.
Ms. Kangas? Here. Mr. Lundy.
Here.
Mrs. Awera? Here. Mr. Naughton?
Here.
Mr. Patel?
Here.
Okay. We will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the approval of the meeting minutes from May 2nd, 2022.
I move that the Board of Education approve the minutes from May 2nd, 2022 as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion about the minutes from the meeting of May 2nd, 2022? Seeing and hearing no discussion, we will move to a vote to approve the meeting minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Meeting minutes have been approved. Next is the approval of the agenda. Board policy provides that the superintendent of schools shall prepare an agenda for all board meetings as directed by the president of the Board of Education.
I'll move that the Board of Education approve the agenda as presented.
It's been moved and seconded. The only discussion I have is that there has been an update to the consent items. There's an additional retirement letter. So if I could get another.
I will move that the Board of Education approve the agenda as amended.
Moved and seconded to approve the agenda as amended. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, we will vote to approve the agenda. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right. We'll move on to our school presentations. We have the Wiley CMIS Community Forum presentation. Wiley students will share the project that they will be presenting at the CMIS Youth Community Forum in Ypsilanti this week.
We have Mrs. Eber, Mr. Bruder. Where are they at? They out in the hall? They're coming in. So we had a group of teachers in classrooms working with SEMIs. The SEMIs Coalition. SEMIs brings the art and craft of place-based education into core practices in schools and advocates for transformational changes at K-12 institutions, colleges, and universities so that all living systems may thrive in sustainable, healthy, and just communities. The SEMIs Coalition uses research-based practices in their teacher development and teacher professional development and coalition building to provide sustained professional development throughout the year, including an intensive summer institute. At Wiley, we've partnered with SEMIs to be able to do some place-based work and expand that work. SEMIs is housed, I believe, out of Eastern Michigan, and it is a Southeast Michigan institute. It does have a statewide reach. I've had schools from the UP that have watched the presentation that our students will be doing the next week, or I think it's next week. The presentation our students are doing. We've had multiple times we've been contacted over the years. Really excited to see Eber out.
Fishbowl is in a circle. If you're in a poster presentation, you're going to stand right here. So fishbowl sits here. Poster presentation, stand here. not enough room, you can sit in the center of the circle, okay? Just on the floor. Make yourself comfortable. So we're gonna. The fishbowl, will you scooch to maybe like one or two? Oh, back. Make it bigger. Make it bigger. There we go. All right, so we have some friends joining us in the center. Can you scoot in the center?
Oh, okay.
Okay. Posters, okay, great, awesome. All right, thanks for a little momentary juggling there. My name is Pam Krebs and I'm an instructional coach for the district, and I've had the great fortune of this year working with the Wiley students and the amazing staff. We've been doing a lot of work through a group called Semis. They've been supporting us, doing a lot of place-based educational work and learning about the place that we live and taking a lot of pride in our community. They've been doing a ton of work around Mill Creek and the Huron River watershed. And so today they're going to take a couple different modalities on teaching you all about what they've learned. We have a few groups doing posters, and then we're going to do a fishbowl protocol where they're just going to have a discussion and you're going to be able to listen in and hear all the things that they've learned. So I'm going to introduce Mrs. C, and she's going to introduce some of our teachers that are here tonight.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for coming to support our students. We have lots of teachers at Wiley who are doing this work with their students, but some of those teachers are here tonight. So this is Mrs. Betsy Schmidt. She teaches 3rd grade at Wiley. Over in the back, Mrs. Susan Karsh, who teaches 4th grade. Natalie Hanlon, right next, she also teaches 4th grade. Anouk Weiss is right here. She teaches 4th grade. Leah Tutara teaches 3rd grade. And then Deb Eber, who's down here on the ground, is 3rd and 4th grade. She has both grades in her class this year. Did everybody? And then, did you introduce yourself? Okay. And then we have the wonderful Pam Krebs who helps us to do all of this work. And I see some Wiley teachers in the crowd too. So kids, are you ready to take it away?
Right. Mrs. Schmidt's class, do you want to come on up? Do you want to introduce your students? Sure.
This is our first group who is doing a presentation to a virtual forum starting tomorrow evening. So they are going to present what they've learned to you guys first. So I'm going to give it to Hudson and Kaya. And then our friend Carson was not able to make it today. So Hudson is actually reading for Carson and Hudson.
Hi, I'm Kaya. Hi, I'm Hudson. And Carson won't be here, so I'm going to read for him. And we're 3rd graders from Mrs. Schmidt's class, and we go to Wiley Elementary School. And today we're here to talk to you about how our semis project. Our project is about how the beavers in Dexter help the environment. Here's how it started. Our class heard about the fencing in Dexter that Trout Unlimited put up to stop the beavers from chewing down the trees that Trout Unlimited planted to give the trout shade. Our class agreed that the beavers in Dexter should stay because they are essential to Michigan history and help the ecosystem in many ways. Speaking of ecosystem, we made a podcast about how beavers help the ecosystem. It's called Beaverology.
Here are some of the things we did to fund our research. We walked on Mill Creek Park. We had scientists come in and teach us about beavers and had a classmate see the dam up close.
Here's some wildlife that beavers help: birds, reptiles, mammals, and plants.
To find our topics for our podcast, we took the most important subtopics from our research to use.
Here's our steps from our project. First, to get us started, our teacher, Ms. Schmidt, sent us links to use for our research.
Then we use the research to make a script for our podcast.
We learned that the beavers help the ecosystem in many ways. We also learned that although beavers can be frustrating, they still help the ecosystem.
It would be nice if you could listen to our podcast now.
Thank you for having us.
All right, and then the podcast is actually right up here. If you click that little button, the speaker button, it will play.
I'm so glad that you got the podcast because I was thinking like, where's this podcast? I didn't hear it.
Well, Dr. Timmons does have the link to the podcast too, so if it does not work right now, we could maybe send it to you guys so you could listen to it another time. That's okay. That's not really- Technology is technology.
So why don't we
Let's
go ahead with the
go
next
into our next presentation, and what Ms. Westergaard said is that she would post it on our website to the actual link to your entire presentation so that others can listen to that podcast if they'd like to. There. All right, so now we have Millie. Our next presentation is going to be by Millie. Millie's partner Chloe was unable to make it today as well, so I will be reading for Chloe's part. Yes. Okay.
I'm Lily, and this is what we did and what we learned. We walked down to the creek with our class and we saw a beaver dam that looked abandoned and ruined. We invited experts into our class to teach us more about beavers. Dr. Z is a Trout Unlimited representative. Trout Unlimited is a group who put fencing around trees that beavers were chewing. They did this to protect the trees so that they could provide shade for the trout. Dr. Z taught our class about beavers and he taught us that beaver predators are hawks, wolves, coyotes, and cougars. Miss Shawn is a beaver naturalist. Miss Shawn taught facts about beavers we didn't know, like that people once dropped beavers out of airplanes in a box with a parachute because they wanted them to cut down trees. We learned that beavers help Dexter by making ponds for the brown trout to live in. Here are some other causes and effects why beavers are important to the ecosystem. Cause: beavers make ponds and dams. Effects are: it makes fresher water, gives more fish and plants, makes plants.
Thank you, Millie. She did it on her own. And then we have one final presentation, one more poster presentation. Court is representing his group today, and they are presenting on a salt protest that our class led back when it was super icy on the playgrounds.
Hi, my name is Cor Preachy. I am in Miss Schmidt's class at Wiley Elementary. Two classmates and I are going to the in-person semis forum at Eastern Michigan University on Thursday to present our work on our class salt protest. Around the end of February, a lot of rain and melted snow turned into ice on our playground. Our playground was closed for the day because it was too icy and dangerous. My classmates and I were frustrated with this because we wanted to go on the playground. The ice was not our fault. Our classmates were inspired to be activists. We created signs that said, "We want salt, it's not our fault," and salt for safety. We then planned a day to take our signs outside and picket and protest. The school, it began to sleep. So we took our protest into the building. We peacefully and quietly marched around the school. Students and some adults stopped us, asking us questions about what we were doing. We had a lot of support. Some students even joined the protest. Then we were heading to the office when a challenger stopped us. Miss Nickerson, our media teacher, asked us, what if salt goes into the storm drain? This made us stop and think. Is salt safe for the environment? Here is a quote from Miss Nickerson. When I heard students chanting in the hallway about adding more salt to the playground, my mind immediately turned to the Huron River. For years, I thought alongside Mill Creek, a tribute of the Huron River. When I taught outdoor environmental education classes to sixth graders at Creekside Intermediate School in 2020. I paddled all 104 miles of the Huron River Water Trail, a journey that took 5 long days of paddling. The river is important to me just as it is important to plants, animals, and communities that rely upon it, but that rely upon it. This is why I decided to speak up and let Ms. Schmidt's class learn more about the impact of road salt on our watersheds. I am thrilled that Ms. Schmidt's class is looking into helping Mill Creek and the Huron River by keeping salt out of our local waterways. We took this time to research environmental friendly salt and how salt affects fish. Our school is by a creek, and some of the salt can go into that creek. This is not good for the fish of our environment, for our environment. We learned that other opinions for salt can be calcium chloride, Epsom salt, calcium magnesium chloride, and even beet juice. Whether are healthier alternatives to salt. What we learned from this experience is that all voices matter, no matter the age of a voice. We also learned that it is okay to challenge our perspective once you get more information.
We just have the poster.
Yeah.
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 Hi, so I'm Leah Tatar. I'm a third grade teacher at Wiley, and I work very closely with Betsy Schmidt. So you're going to hear some more Beaver facts. This is a representative of a group of students of mine who will be going to the in-person semis community forum on Thursday at Eastern Michigan. They're going to just give a brief overview of their poster that they're going to present on Thursday.
Hello, we are students from Miss Tatara's class. And our names are Zoe, Peyton, and Maya. We have two other friends that we work with. Their names are Reese and Cora. We read about the beaver dam at Mill Creek, so we went down to see it, and we wanted to tell people about it. We learned about beavers. Beavers were important to Michigan history because of the fur trade. We also learned how beavers are important to the environment. For example, they make ponds that help other animals, create dams that can prevent wildfires.
All right, one thing I forgot to mention is that this is kind of a big week for these kids because this is Semi's big, huge kind of celebration week. And so there is an online showcase tomorrow night from 4:30 to 6:30 that the kids will Zoom in on, and they have panelists on the Zoom that will talk and ask questions. And there was one for a different school today. It was phenomenal. So I'm just really excited to see what we're gonna show to the rest of the world tomorrow. And then there's an in-person gallery that is gonna be on Thursday at Eastern Michigan University. So some of these students will be presenting this information again on Thursday to all sorts of different school districts and adults in the area. All right, so we're gonna do a fishbowl. I'm gonna try to pass this microphone around. You might have to bear with us. It's a big room and a small circle, so we'll see how this goes. All right, I'm gonna talk to Mrs. E. Uh-oh, oh, there we go. Okay. You're way over. All right, so can you tell us a little bit about the water walker tradition and how it can inspire others to take care of the water?
Josephine Mondamin is the one who created the water walker tradition. The water walker tradition is told Mother Earth water walks. The water walks are where you walk around the home's lakes and carry a pail of water all the way around the lake until you reach the beginning. More about Josephine Mondamin. Josephine Mondamin was inspired by her chiefs that said that in 2030, water will cost as much as gold. And that worried Josephine and a lot of others, so she started the water walking. I think it can inspire like a lot of people because they see like the work that Josephine Mondamin puts into cleaning our water and like how like water is polluted and how people can help clean it.
tradition is like something that someone has started doing with a couple of people. Why? After class, took a day off to learn the Water Walker song with Mr. Cook, our music teacher.
Sing it.
Sure. These are go. Wish away, let me go. These are where we go. Those words translated to English and means water we love you, water we thank you, and water we respect you.
You want to tell them? So we have an event coming up, another event that included more of Wiley because only a certain number of people can participate in summies. But we wanted to spread the wealth and kind of open up what those teachers have been doing. And so Deb Eber decided that we should create this water walking event inspired by the book and the water walking that you just heard about. And we've invited all of Wiley, and that will take place on June 3rd. June 6th is our rain date, but we're really hoping for June 3rd, down at Mill Creek. So anybody can come and join us. It's open to the public and you can learn even a lot more.
And it's from 12 to 9, 9 to 12 on Tuesday. The book is the Water Walker book, Water Walker's book that I have right here.
That was the inspiration. All right, Mrs. Kohler's class, I'm going to ask you, Mrs. Kohler's class did a lot of mindfulness down at Mill Creek, and I'm going to ask you, why is Mill Creek important?
I think it's important because it's like the waterway through all of Dexter, so without it, we wouldn't have like green grass or like a ton of animals would die because they wouldn't get the water they needed. I think the Mill Creek is very important to us in nature because over a lot of animals live there and they really need that home to live and water. And if we wouldn't have water, we would not be doing so good right now. So we were walking down to the creek. Me and my friend Lucy saw fish and deer. And if we didn't have water, those things couldn't live there. And yeah. So we did a meditation called Deer Ears, where basically it's kind of simple. You just cup your ears against your hands against your ears, and then you kind of point your ears in different directions because we can only hear left, right, up and down. We can't hear diagonally. So yeah. We also learned fox walking. It's where you stay quiet the whole time and walk very quietly. Put the blade of your shoe down first and then lay it down and then the next one. And we even saw mink and they're like pretty hard to find. It's just laying in the water. We also learned owl eyes and you look very closely in the trees and try to spot what animals you can find. Also for owl eyes, usually you like turn your head and stuff for owl eyes because they can't really like rotate your eyes. They have to look straight forward. They use their, I think it was like called like peripheral vision or something, but they look like to the side without actually looking to the side.
Thank you. We mentioned earlier about the storm drains. Mrs. Karsh's class really dug into the storm drains. We've had a lot of storm drain work done. We've got some painted storm drains around Wiley that they're taking care of. And so my question to you is, what impact do storm drains have on our water?
The impact of the storm drains is if we pollute the water that goes into the storm drains, it can lead right back into the water and it can be really bad for the ecosystem and it can hurt animals in it and it can affect the food chain if animals can like have that in them and then it just affects the entire food chain. It's not good for the ecosystem. And one way that the storm drains can affect the water is that all the rocks and sand in the storm drains clean the water. They get a lot of stuff out of the water, pollution out of the water, and we saw a mask hanging on a rock, just like stuck there, which probably means it went through the storm drain and it didn't make it all the way to the river, but sometimes trash does make it to the river.
Well, kind of like you guys were saying about how the storm drain affects us, is like a lot of like people, some people like were pouring down like oil down the storm drain, what could affect the water heavily in the food chain and stuff.
And back to Ellie's stuff going down the storm drain. I remember when we were taking a walk down to the Huron River, I picked out like a big full-size can and a bunch of other stuff. And like leaves, grass clippings should not go down the storm drains too. Another thing that can hurt the water is in the winter, since it gets very cold here and icy, we have to put salt on our roads and sidewalks. And when it melts, it goes down the storm drain, that can make the water extremely bad because that's one of the main pollutants. And the other main pollutant is dirt, because if it like washes around, then it can get through the fish's gills and then it can affect the food chain again. So another thing is, if you think about it, sort of like Ellie was just saying about the dirt. So if you think that that dirt can help the river, and there's obviously dirt in the river, but if there's too much dirt in the river, it can affect bugs and fish and different kinds of animals that live in the water, because they can start just breathing in dirt and that's really not good for their lungs. And down at the river, we learned that there are some bugs in the river that can't stand any pollution, and some that can stand a little bit, and some that can stand like a bunch of pollution in the river.
Yeah, when we were down at the river, we were like doing teaching, we were being taught about like erosion and how like more dirt goes down.
Adding on about erosion, another thing about it is animals, like beavers, they can accidentally take down like plants near the sides, and then that can bring more dirt in, and then it can affect the river flow sometimes and move more dirt around and stuff. Our teacher said that she saw somebody dumping oil, like he was changing the oil in his car and he dumped the oil down a storm drain. And he didn't really think anything of it probably. He just thought it's somewhere to put it. And he thought that was okay because not many people are informed about storm drains. Not many people know what they are. They kind of look like sewer drains when they're not. They actually affect a lot of water places, and sometimes it takes the water to like a small nearest body of water, like a creek or a little stream.
So there will be a PSA service announcement coming to a storm drain near you soon. Speaking of pollution in the water. Speaking of pollution in the water, I was going to ask Mrs. Hanlon's class, how is pollution impacting our water?
Pollution's like impacting our water because it's impacting like all the wildlife and animals that like live in the water or near the water. And it's just really bad for like the water, and it's bad if we want like clean water in the future. And clean water, it's not the fact that we produce more clean water like a lot. It's where if we get the water like dirty or we pollute it, we're not going to have much water in the future. And water's like, it's insanely important for humans to live. And if we don't have that, we won't have many humans. So if we keep polluting the water, we're not going to have water for like humans, or the water's just going to cost a ton. People will be dying off because of that. Like salt's not good for the water at all. And there's this chemical called PFAS that could go into the water. That's also really bad for the water. It's just really bad. We pollute our water for the animals and like for us. And yeah, that's it.
So Mill Creek is kind of a unique place. It's a cold water creek, and we have a class, Mr. Barnes' class has been studying about some trout that live in that creek.
Yeah, so we have trout. We actually were raising brown trout in our fish tanks at school, which everyone always thinks are really cool. And brown trout are getting it's getting bad because in the creek, like I know everyone knows was told about the water being bad. When the water's bad, the brown trout drink the water, and then the brown trout gets sick from whatever in the water. It's not just like eating plastic, which a lot of people think is also a big issue, which it is, but it's like also, even if we were to remove all the plastic, which there is a lot, you can see like little spots at the end of the Mill Creek on the edges where it's oily and like it's still, and it might look really pretty, but that's actually the oil that's like doing the problem with it. And like if the brown trout were to swim up looking for like a tasty bug, it's just like, it's like they could like die because of that, because it's so bad. The oil can be so bad for them. So Mr. Barnes, I don't know how many he got. He's not here tonight, but I don't know how many he got, but he got a lot of eggs. And then some of them died off naturally because they just couldn't. And then we have a bunch of brown trout. And then what he said he's gonna do is he's gonna release them into the creek, and a lot of people were upset about that because they were like, no, that's gonna make them bad because it's pollution. Because we were like, I think one of the first classes to actually go down to the creek, we did it at like our second Wednesday of school. And we all were noticing it, and people were like, the oil's really pretty, but like it's actually really harmful. And like it's not just oil that's behind the scenes, there's also just a bunch of litter.
everywhere. And, yeah, and there's a bunch of litter and stuff.
Right, and just like a car, we have a little bit of a hybrid right now. We have a poster presentation.
I mean,
That's, yeah, we've gone this far, right? We can do another 2 minutes. A poster presentation, we're gonna end with a song about trash.
How bad is
Yeah, or just put it up there.
We maybe just describe what's on the sheet. Maybe you want to introduce
my name is Dominic Schaefer. This is.
I'm Iris. I'm Henry. I'm Gabby.
We made a song with our wonderful music teacher, Mr. Cook. And we made this big thing.
So
We also made a slideshow for the semis online
The QR code.
thing. The QR code is here. People
wanna
can
watch
see it.
yeah, and then so this is like an earth, and like on the dirty side it's trash, and then on this side it's clean. And then this is trash patrol, which is a thing we have in our class.
And it explains a bit in the song.
Yeah, and
Right.
then it says it somewhere on here. I don't know. I think
It's
down here.
right here.
Right here. And so it describes it. But
Anyway, we have this song.
So they came up with all the lyrics for the song and the tune, and then Mr. Cook, with the help of GarageBand, came with some background music.
Sponsors.
Okay.
All right, this first here.
Yep.
I see trash on the ground, I make things in the ground. I tell someone to pick it up, but no one makes a sound. I go to pick it up, but another piece falls down. I pick up trash around my community. I really do try. I feel bad for the animals, I don't want them to die. If they eat the trash, the bastard gets inside. We have this thing called trash patrol, it makes the earth well. If we keep doing it, it'll make the earth swell. I go outside to play. Every single day, I see trash on the ground, and then I turn around. There's trash everywhere, there's trash everywhere. All anybody does is stare, what are we gonna do next? Want a trash-free community, not a trash bill one. We want a trash-free community, not a trash bill one. Took a walk down the B2B trail. We saw a lot of trash down the B2B trail. Cardboards and bottles and plastic bags. The trail is a human fail. If you can recycle, do it in a flash. Just remember, don't put it in the trash. Waste-free shop, it makes me want to hop, 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 hop. This is a whole plastic bag in the butcher. This is a hands for about a year. Never stop. Every day, there's more, but that's all we have to say. On track, free community, not a trash. Build one, we want a trash. Free community, not a trash. Build one. So now you. Our community is all fresh and clean.
right, so when Mr. Bruder asked me if I could drum up a couple kids to come and show what we've been learning, I expected, like, oh, hopefully I can get a couple. And so thank you for putting up with us through all of this and encouraging all of their learning. Thank you to all the teachers who have done such amazing work with these kids this year. Thank you.
Thank you, families, for bringing all your kids. We meet you out in the hallway. Thank you for bringing it.
So while we're finding our spots again, I have a pile of green sheets that I will go through. If anybody else has a green sheet that they want to bring up, I'm just going to go through the green sheets in order that they were presented to me to call off people, and then at the end, if there are more people. So with that said, we have come to our public participation portion of our agenda. During public comment, each speaker is allotted a maximum of 5 minutes for a total of 30 minutes unless otherwise notified. Each speaker will be asked to announce his, her, or their name and district of residence and indicate if he, she, they represent any organization or agency. No person may speak more than once on the same subject during a single meeting. Those wishing to receive a personal response from the board or superintendent must complete a public comment form available at the meeting entrance and on our website. In addition, as presiding officer, I would like to remind everyone that public comments should pertain to the Dexter Community School District matters and concerns related to the operation of the schools or matters within the authority of the board. Those who wish to speak shall direct all comments to the board and not to staff or other participants. Also, speakers addressing the board shall take into consideration rules of common courtesy. Speakers who make attacks of a personal nature and or do not abide by the rules of common courtesy will be reminded of such rules by the board president or the presiding officer. Such individuals may be asked to leave the meeting if their behavior is disruptive or interferes with the orderly progress of the meeting. Also, please understand that board members do not respond to public comments, but we will listen very carefully and we will follow up as appropriate. If there is an immediate need for clarification, we will do so after the speaker's allotted time. So the first green sheet I have is Stacy Wing.
Some of you are probably wondering why.
Do you want to put it
Look, it's working. Is that better? Yes. Okay, so I'm back, and you might be wondering why, because I don't have any kids in the school. I don't have a job in the school, and I really have no interest here outside of what any other district resident would have. But I also have nothing to lose, and I don't have any fear. Unlike many DCS employees who contacted me over the last 2 weeks. Unlike the room full of staff who were here at the last meeting, only 2 of whom stood up to speak for themselves. When I asked them, why aren't you standing up to speak for yourselves? They told me that they're afraid. They're afraid that if they speak up, they could lose their job. And they're not just afraid for their jobs. They're afraid of retaliation against their kids who attend Dexter community schools, their children. Now, you're probably thinking that that's absurd, And it should be absurd, but it's not. It's reality. And I also hope that the next thing you think is why? Why would these grown adults to whom we entrust our children be afraid to speak up for themselves, be afraid to advocate for themselves? Somebody should be asking why. And the suggestion was actually made to me that I should read some of the messages that were sent to me over the last 2 weeks. I'm not going to do that today because the messages were very specific in naming the entities causing the fear and the intimidation, and I think that would probably violate your rules. But the culture of fear that has been cultivated here in the school district would not thrive in any other workplace. And I really don't need to tell you guys that because you all have or have had jobs that are not related to public education. So just imagine being in those jobs and being afraid to even stand up and speak for yourself, being afraid to advocate for yourself. Just try to imagine what that would feel like. I don't have to imagine. I know exactly how they feel because I was afraid too. I was afraid if I spoke up, I would lose my job. That's why I'm here, to speak for the people who can't. The employees of Dexter Community Schools are human beings, just like all of you. They have families and lives, and they deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. They deserve a workplace that is free of fear and intimidation. And they deserve the support of the school board. I believe that's why you're here.
It was Emily Schultz, and just so the next person is ready, Jen Werner is on deck.
Hello, my name is Emily Schultz. I go to Dexter High School. I'm a junior. I was given this opportunity through one of my classes, bearing witness, and I wrote a letter on change, speaking about teacher salary. In recent years, the argument of teacher salary has been a controversial topic. Where most teachers struggle out of college or have multiple jobs on the side to sustain a standard of living, the current base salary has not been able to keep up with rising inflation. Many teachers have noticed the wage gap between other districts such as Chelsea and Saline. There are, of course, a couple ways DHS can go about this issue. This could be looking into school budget or leaving it up to the state. Currently, Dexter's base salary for teachers, depending on their degree, ranges from $40,000 to $51,000. This is the minimum amount a teacher can make. Then it increases by about $1,000, sometimes less each year. The most notable section of this is comparing other schools in the district. Chelsea schools districts are nearly $7,000 above Dexter's salary rate, while Saline's starting pay is only a $2,000 difference. However, as teachers continue to look at these salaries, the annual salary is quickly seen as a problem when comparing neighboring districts. With these factors in mind, if a teacher has a master's degree at Dexter, their base salary is $44,200, while Saline's is $49,281. In terms of experience with a basic bachelor's degree, while in step 10 of the annual salary schedule, a Dexter High School teacher will be paid $57,074, while at Saline, a teacher with the same experience is earning $71,956, a near $14,000 difference. With 10 years of experience, the difference is $63,004 for Dexter and $83,093 for Saline, a little more than a $20,000 difference. Because consider the school's budget in this situation, Saline's school budget was about $62.7 million for the 2021 to 2022 school year. They use a system where 70% of their funds go towards teacher salary and an extra 30% goes towards school matters. Dexter's school budget is about $56.1 million in total to appropriate. Dexter uses 52.5% of the funds for faculty salary, not including subs or parateachers. Of course, this is a large gap between funding and could make it difficult to reach Saline's standard of pay, but this does not mean we can't try to increase our teacher's salary. Because I'm not a teacher and I do not have a personal story about this subject, I asked some teachers around the school what they thought about their own salaries at Dexter High School. The majority believed that teachers were underpaid, while the minority said that they were happy with their pay. One teacher made a point to describe the viewpoint from someone living in the district, stating, "The current first-year teacher pay here and in Dexter is about $40,000, which is just above the considered, which is just above what is considered a living wage in Michigan. While it is definitely not enough to live within our community. I know many of our teachers cannot live within the Dexter community because their wage does not allow for that. Dexter, as we can all agree, is a fairly wealthy community. Rent is on the high side, and that does not include additional taxes and fees. Many families are moving to Dexter to receive a highly praised education. So why aren't our teachers receiving benefits for their work? Some teachers made budget cuts close to $4,000 to move to Dexter Community Schools and keep up with multiple jobs ranging from tutoring, club activity, and coaching to make up for what money was lost or needed. With most teachers not having earned a PhD, they do not have the opportunity to make the maximum amount of salary either. With this information and data on how other schools are deciding to encourage and benefit their teachers, I hope it encourages you to rethink how Dexter is divvying up their money. If you are unaware about these differences, looking into the variety of opportunities DCS can do would help teachers and other faculty members feel seen and appreciated, unlike in the past. Thank you for your time.
Murphy Hanson is on deck. Hi, I'm Jen Werner. I am a parent of two twin girls that are 7 that go to Acre. I this year decided, because there was a need at our district, to become a para. I was a stay-at-home mom. I have an interior design degree. I decided to stay home with my children. Now they're 7, and I was like, okay, I'm a little out of my element now, and thought, well, I can help. I'm very disappointed in what our district pays our paras. I personally do not need the job. But my husband's like, you're basically volunteering. I mean, I think it's what, $8,000 or $9,000 for the school year for a para. It's pretty sad. And there's so many people that do it that actually need the job. So I'm quite sure why we fall below other districts where they're getting benefits, $18, $20 an hour, where we're getting $12.39 an hour. I love working at Wiley. The staff is great. I work with Mrs. Bowman. She's amazing. I've met so many cool people, but I really think our district is letting us down. Nicholson is on deck. Everybody can hear me well? Good. All right. Good evening. My name is Murphy Hanson. I'm a social studies teacher at Dexter High School. I'm currently completing my 6th year of teaching. I have a master's degree in educational leadership and policy, and I also have my K-12 building admin cert. My heart rests in this profession of education. However, it wasn't long ago that I walked the hallways of Dexter High School, rode a coach bus to DC, and enjoyed my time on the Creekside and Wiley playgrounds during recess. I was a Dexter kid. I am a Dexter kid. The very adults in this room helped to lead me and guide me during my formative years, helping me through some pretty tough times. Never did I think I'd be lucky enough to call them my colleagues, let alone mentors throughout the early years of my career in the very same district, my district. I want to take a moment to thank them for their support and camaraderie. I love you all. I received multiple job offers after my graduation from the University of Michigan during the summer of 2016. I was offered a position at Saline High School after I accepted my position at Dexter, which I obviously denied. Ultimately, I came back to Dexter because I knew everything that this district gave to me.
Beyond my education and experience as a classroom teacher, having been a DCS student adds to my expertise and the unique perspective that I bring. I'm sure you've heard this Maya Angelou quote. It goes, "I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." This quote has helped build the foundation for my philosophy of teaching and learning. As educators, it's our responsibility to make our students feel supported, understood, and truly seen. However, this quote does not just apply to teachers, but all leaders within the educational system as well. As those who sit at the very top of our system, and those that bridge the gap between our schools and our community. It is your responsibility to make those you lead feel heard, valued, and appreciated. When my professors told me leadership is lonely, they weren't kidding. When I'm old and gray, retired and reflecting on my hopefully long career in education, I won't remember what you've said as leaders. However, I will certainly remember how you made me feel. I will remember the frustration, the anger, and the pain your words and actions have made me feel. I will be able to recall feeling anything but heard, valued, and appreciated. As a Dexter student, I remember our teacher, Autumn Campbell, taught me how to stand up for others. That, our newspaper teacher, taught me to be inquisitive and to ask questions. Jill Fike, who's here tonight, demonstrated what it means to be wholehearted, teaching with her heart on her sleeve every day. And his English teacher, Krista McDonough, who taught me how to find and use my voice. And for someone who hated and still hates public speaking, it's a big feat. I'm standing here in front of all of you using the very skills this district's educators taught me, asking you for more, asking for better, asking for the respect I and all of our DCS teachers and staff deserve. This is my home, a place I return to improve upon the wonderful organization we already have. However, if I continue to be forced to take on 2, 3, even 4 jobs on top of my teaching position each year to make ends meet, my ability to continue to provide excellent instruction and attend to the many mental health needs of our students will not be possible. What I've been doing for the last 6 years, the amount of hours I put in, it's just not sustainable. I can't do it anymore. My body and mind are beginning to revolt against the insane routine I somehow have managed to keep up. There is no self-care cure or work-life hack for being an educator in today's world. For those of you who have had students in my classroom, they'll tell you just how hard I work. With an increase in my pay, my hope is that I will only need to rely on 1, maybe 2 jobs in addition to my teaching position to take care of myself financially. As my students and athletes hold me accountable each and every day, making their wants and needs heard, sometimes in the most unlovable of ways, I am holding you all accountable to the promise you've made to our students, teachers, staff, administrators, and community. Trust me when I say employees will continue to leave this year and beyond. Dexter families with school-age children will feel this teacher shortage. Our district is not immune to the pressures and casualties of teacher burnout. You can deny it all you like, but it will not change the fact that our district will be hard-pressed to find quality educators in the years to come. My question for all of you is, why not do all you can to retain the educators and leaders you already have? I stand here as a Dexter alum. I represent the Dexter students who came before me, went to school with me, and those that have graduated after me. I am the profile of a learner that I helped this very district build just a few years ago. When you have an employee that is as loyal as me, questioning whether or not I can stay, it's time to seriously reflect on what you can do as leaders to listen, affirm, and act to preserve the integrity of the system with which you are associated. As we've been told as educators, those you lead are always watching what you do. A lack of response is a response. I will be watching to see what type of response you have. I appreciate your time this evening and would be happy to speak with you more should you have any questions or concerns moving forward. Go Dreads.
And just before you speak, the last green sheet I have is Sarah Russell, just so Sarah's on set.
Good evening. My name is Meredith Nickerson, and I am a media specialist at Wiley Elementary School. One thing I've learned about Dexter teachers is that they are humble. The educators in this community will take on extra responsibilities, work extra hours, and sacrifice themselves for the sake of their students. However, they rarely speak of their own worth within our school community. Tonight, I'm going to veer away from humility to speak of my own work as a Dexter teacher and express my concerns regarding how Dexter Community Schools compensates its dedicated staff. I've been an educator here in Dexter for the past 12 years. During this time, I have spearheaded and started a variety of innovative and transformational projects. As a 6th grade teacher, I started a winter survival day program and coding clubs. As a technology coach, I help prepare every building in this district for our one-to-one technology initiatives. I train teachers before, during, and after each student in the district is given access to an iPad, Chromebook, or laptop. As a media specialist, I've expanded students' opportunities with both technology and literature. I have genreified the entire Wiley Library, taken over 500 students on walking field trips to learn about geocaching, and have developed a curriculum that tackles advanced topics such as digital citizenship, coding, 3D modeling, robotics, and VR design. While I am proud of these accomplishments, I also know that there are other teachers in DCS who have worked longer and even more tirelessly than I to develop top-notch learning experiences for our students. Unfortunately, I'm not entirely sure the community realizes just how much my colleagues and I have sacrificed for the sake of this district as well. As a new hire in 2010, in the thick of our last recession, I was hired on a new, different, lower salary schedule that established Dexter staff. While this issue has since been resolved and is now benefiting new hires, it did not change the fact that I lost years of earning potential and retirement income that I will never get back. In 2012, when my job was threatened by ongoing layoffs in DCS, I was forced to delay a house hunt and the start of my master's degree due to the uncertainty of my future employment within the district. In the years that follow, my husband and I put off starting a family due to the costly medical bills and increased contributions towards district-provided health insurance. When the pandemic struck and teachers were asked to turn on a dime and shift to online instruction, I stepped forward and took on extra hours of work to help train our upper elementary and intermediate school staff on the basics of Canvas and online teaching. I have given of myself time and time again for the district, but have only received modest step increases and costly health benefits in return. As a result of years of work and little to show for it in terms of salary or compensation, I, like many other experienced and qualified teachers, have begun looking beyond DCS to see what opportunities are available both in and outside the realm of education. Imagine my shock to discover that if I taught in just about any other local district, I could be earning considerably more than my current salary. I could be making, in Saline area schools, I could be making $5,288 more a year. In Chelsea, I could be making $6,586 more a year. In Ann Arbor Public Schools with my level of education, 12 years of experience, and my status as a highly effective educator per teacher evaluations, I could be making $12,000 more a year. $12,000 after years of lost earning potential here at Dexter. For some in this community, these numbers may not seem like much, but as a mom to a young son in a family that relies on a dual income, it makes a huge difference in my world. Many are focused on just the numbers of increasing staff salaries and benefits. When one looks at the situation on paper, our district would actually save money if I were to seek higher paying employment elsewhere. If I leave DCS, the district can save money by hiring a younger teacher whose salary is even lower than my own. But at what cost? If experienced teachers like myself leave the district in droves, what programs, learning opportunities, and years of experience will be lost? In conclusion, if Dexter continues to demand top-notch education for all students from educators who excel in their field, such excellence must be compensated fairly. I remind you of the adage, you get what you pay for. While some might be content to settle for good teachers and good schools, I've come to believe that this community, its parents, its students, and staff expect more. Tonight, I encourage you to consider honoring and respecting DCF staff for their dedication, professionalism, and tireless work during these trying times by paying us what we're worth. Thank you.
actually just want to start by saying I'm extremely nervous to be up here, but I too am teaching my students to stand up and speak out and how we can make an impact. And this is my moment to be brave. And my son says you have to be scared in order to be brave. So I'm here to be brave. My name is Sarah Russell. I am a 4th grade teacher at Wiley. I have been teaching for 15 years. I absolutely love teaching. Education has been a passion of mine for several years, all the way back to the days of playing school in the basement of my childhood home. I was either going to be a teacher or a professional runner. Well, that's what I dreamed to be anyways. I may not be a superstar runner, but I am a professional educator. However, I sadly don't always feel appreciated or valued. The last 2 years have been stressful, in speaking both as a parent and a teacher. I absolutely love my students. We actually have a lot of fun together. It hasn't been until recently that I started to question my career choice. However, I still love the job and the kids. The only thing that's lacking is my worth. Until recently, I thought every district was struggling. I didn't want to believe the problem was in Dexter. After seeing the salaries of Chelsea and Celine, I now know I'm undervalued. I am a teacher who doesn't make enough to live in district. I am a teacher who strives to be better year after year. I am a teacher who would make nearly $10,000 more if I taught in Chelsea. I am a teacher who likes to collaborate and work with her colleagues. I am a teacher who would make more money teaching in Chelsea if I only had a bachelor's degree than I am in Dexter with a master's degree. I am a teacher who loves joking with her students. I am a teacher who would make nearly $40,000 in the next 4 years if I just worked in Chelsea. I am a teacher who enjoys working on the weekends. I know, I said it. I am a teacher who loves the community of Dexter, even though I grew up in by road. I am a teacher, like all the teachers in Dexter, that just want to be appreciated for the care and expertise that we provide the students and the community. Thank you for your continued support. Go Dreads and beat Dexter.
So that's the pile I have. Is there anybody else who would like to speak tonight? Okay, seeing no one running to the podium, we will move on to our next item on the agenda, which is administrative and board updates, starting with our superintendent.
So first off, I wanted to talk real quick about the multi-generational activities village proposal. We have a website that'll go live tomorrow. It will explain to community members what is included in the village, includes an FAQ and information. So it has a basic overview of what a recreation village is, which is we've been titling it a multi-generational activities village. We have a series of questions and answers, starting from what is a recreation village? Why are we asking the voters to consider approving a recreation village? Why did the board approve it? How is the money plan, the revenue plan to be spent? And what types of programming could the district fund with an approved multi-generational activities village, which would be right now for clarification, the board's gonna have to kind of sort through this a bit. 25% for stable funding for the Dexter Senior Center, the senior activities, 25% for construction and operations of future Dexter Community Center, open to the community, and 50% for youth and adult enrichment activities, going everywhere from fine arts to athletics to robotics, etc. To go into, it explains how these programs are currently funded, including that the senior center raises about $13,000 a year from municipalities. The rest is fundraised. How the oversight would work, and later on the agenda, we have a chance to talk about oversight. What other districts or communities have a recreation village, and goes into more details. On there, we have what the impact of the community would be, and information on voter precincts, what it looks like in terms of taxable values, key dates, how to vote absentee, where your voting locations are within the district, etc. And then last, opportunities to add questions so we can update and expand the question and answer sections. So this will go live tomorrow. We'll have it set up on the website to go out. We'll share with the community. I need to set up a forum or two soon. So we're working through every night of the week, trying to make sure we can get everything in. So this is just a quick update. Wanted to share it here first before we share it publicly. Yeah, as far as an email and get it out on the, into social media and the general media. Secondly, I wanted to congratulate Elise Bruderly on becoming a certified board member through MASB. So congratulations, it's a ton of work. Got the award, perfect. And we have a lot going on in the district. It's May, there's an event every night, and we're seeing kids everywhere, it's great. And want to thank our teachers for everything you do for our kids and all of our support. Everyone at DCS, what you do for our kids and our communities. Thank you.
Next on our agenda is board president update. And I just wanted to say that the past couple meetings, it's actually been a pleasure to see all of the teachers in attendance. It's nice to see a lot of the familiar faces, faces of people that made a huge impact on my children's education, their athletics. Coach Hansen has made a huge impact in our lives. She taught with my daughter and coaches my son. So that's just a small impact in my life. And I know that all of our teachers make such a huge impact on the community as well. In fact, every one of the trustees that are sitting here at the table tonight have a child or a great grandchild in the district. So we know firsthand how important it is to value the educators in our district. Our board and teachers in this district have historically had a relationship based on mutual trust and respect. And it is my hope as the current board president that we continue to maintain that relationship and that we can work together to find a path that will show our teachers how much we value them, not just in words, but also in compensation. And with that, that's great. Jump at the end of our table, our student representatives. I know, I'm gonna wait until after because it's work.
Okay, so kindergartners at Beacon watched 7 eggs hatch from the incubator and turn into chickens, while kindergartners at Anchor watched worms do compost, and all second graders from both schools walked the water trail to see how land forms are made. And Mr. Glenn has started a morning running club on Tuesday and Thursdays to get kids exercising and learn healthy eating habits. At Wiley, student council during staff appreciation week filled carts with snacks and drinks to pass them on to staff.
In Creekside, 6th graders did a portable ponds hands-on activity with the naturalist endeavors group. They go out, they look at some crayfish, some fish eggs, put some bacteria under a microscope. I think I did it when I was in school. It's a blast. You can just kind of go out, look at nature. And then Creekside Choir concert this Thursday, orchestra concert on June 2nd, a band concert on June 7th. In Mill Creek, the 8th grade Washington, D.C. trip happened for the first time in a couple of years, so that was a success. And then 7th grade had their first lock-in event in a couple of years too, which is kind of like the school dance for that. And then high school prom was this weekend. That was a big success. And then the NHS induction ceremony is this Wednesday, and 9th grade move up from Mill Creek is underway. I think that's all we have.
Thank you, Jonathan. So tonight is Aiden's last board meeting with us as he gets to graduate and move on. And so we just wanted to, as a board, thank him for all of the input that he has given over the past 2 years. You've had one of the harder 2 years with us. You actually got to do Zoom board meetings with us, and I mean, you got to, like, how exciting. As if you were on Zoom enough, you got to come in and Zoom in with us. And we just appreciate all of the hard work that you put in for doing the student updates and keeping all of us informed. And I know that you've done such a great job. So Aiden, thank you so much for being our student. you have one more year.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't think you're, and you have more meetings, because you don't get to like. Peace out.
Summer ones.
All right, so moving on, we have our consent items on our agenda.
Board of Education approved the consent items in bulk, which include resignations, retirements, and the budget.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent items in bulk. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion,
I would just like to personally, I appreciate everybody who works here, but I will especially this walk. So thank you for all of your help. And then yours. Is there any more discussion?
all those in favor of approving the consent items in bulk, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. The consent items have been approved in bulk. Moving on to our action items, our first action item is our bid packages. The facilities committee met on April 28th to review bids for the bond construction work. The majority of those bid packages were approved at the May 2nd, 2022 meeting, but two were held back and another was tabled pending additional information. Tonight's packet includes a recommendation letter and bid tabulations for two of the outstanding bids, as well as a summary bid calculation for the series of bids. So the two bids are bid package number 26 for the rooftop units. And there you go. Thank you. I know, I'm just reading. And bid package 26, the category 26 to 2304. First one is 2303. And that's for the chiller.
I move that the Board of Education awards the contracts for bid package number 26, category 26-23-03, rooftop units to train, PRA&P, for an amount not to exceed $67,096 and assigns contracts to Ranger for management.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Do we have any questions for Mr. McCollum? Hearing no discussion, I will put it to a vote. All those in favor of awarding contracts for bid package 26, category 262303 rooftop units to train for an amount not to exceed $67,096, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. We have a second bid package for the chiller.
I move that the Board of Education award contracts for bid package number 26, category 26-23-24, chiller to train for an amount not to exceed $209,875, and sign contracts to Granger.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll put it to a vote to award the package 262304 chiller to train for an amount not to exceed $209,875 and assign contracts to Granger for management. I'll say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Moving on, our next action item is the Summer Learning Institute. Our packet includes an executive summary regarding the proposal for a summer reading and math targeted learning support program. Summer Learning Institute, or SLI, for students currently completing kindergarten through 5th grade. This item was presented and discussed at the May 2nd, 2022 meeting and returns this evening for action.
I move that the Board of Education approve the Summer Learning Institute. I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Summer Learning Institute. Is there any discussion?
I just have one question. When is the assessment going to be done?
Yes,
Does it have, or has it already been done?
we've been in process of completing those right now.
Yeah,
Almost finished.
good question. The screening assessments are being concluded in the next week or two. And then we'll work with our interventionists and our literacy coaches to do some more diagnostic work. Make sure that we have a really good plan for the students leading into the summer.
Will they be time for parents to make a decision, I guess?
Yes, absolutely. Our hope is that once this is approved, we'll be posting positions. We'll start reaching out to students in the next week.
Is there any other discussion?
I know on the back that we've got the updated budget that obviously we were waiting on the lunches, so that's included. Some of the prices are, have been split out a little bit differently, it looks like, Mr. Bruder.
I don't know if they've been split. Maybe we took out the curriculum materials, put them on their own line items, so you could better see how those will be utilized. But that top line being DEA staff members, paraprofessional support, 6 members. I had a little bit of miscalculation on the student support. I apologize for that. So that's a more representative figure. Transportation, again, we're planning for the maximum number of buses, but depending on where students live, that cost would easily be less. And food nutrition is the big expenditure that wasn't represented last time. We were awaiting USDA guidance. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get free lunches for all of our students through the federal government, but the district is working in to cover the cost so all students can use the free lunch. And then those curriculum materials, we anticipate some consumables as well as some literacy resources to support the work that our students and staff will be doing.
It's been moved and seconded, we discussed. All those in favor to approve the Summer Learning Institute, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. It has been approved. Next item under our action items is the WISD 2022-2023 budget. Your packet includes the 2022 to 2023 proposed budget documents from the WISD and a sample resolution. The board must adopt a resolution of support or indicate specific recommendations for changes before June 1st, 2022. Typically, the board would have had an opportunity to discuss the proposed budget at one meeting and act next, but this year the materials were not distributed until after the first DCSNA board meeting. So this is starting on the action agenda.
I'll move that the Board of Education adopt the attached approval resolution regarding the proposed WISD 2022-2023 budget.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Moving on to discussion.
So by law, local districts get to vote on the general services portion of the ISD budget. The Washington ISD works really collaboratively with all the local districts and allows boards to vote on the entire budget. Most of their functions are pass-through dollars. So for example, the special education millage, they operate special education programming and oversight, but then they reimburse school districts locally for our special education costs. We are fortunate as of a few years ago to have passed an enhancement millage that brings us to 100% funded for special education. We are reimbursed 2 years after the cost, so any increase in special ed costs, we generally have to eat that for 2 years and then we're caught up. In their budget, they've done a really good job of trying to work through in general services. They did not receive hardly any stimulus funds, unlike locals. However, even with stimulus funds, as you know, they have so many strings attached that there are, sometimes you're looking how you're allowed to spend it. Their budget it's representative of supporting the local districts with general services in terms of technology and training and support for students across the district. They include a lot of details on how the budget is spent. Their special education budget is about $129 million, and their general education budget is about $30 million. So it is a small portion of their total budget. And in the end, most of that is grants. For example, Head Start runs through the ISD, so a big chunk of it is Head Start grants. They don't have a very big delta as far as what they can move with discretionary, how they want to staff. Most of their funds are designated for grant funded positions. And I would recommend after doing this year after year I would recommend to approve the budget. I don't see any reason not to.
You say why that was.
Oh, they sent it,
Might be my fault.
No, our issue was, our first board meeting was May 2nd. It was that first Monday. They sent it to us in the afternoon, of May 2nd. So it just wasn't in time for the board meeting.
I appreciated the whole detail that was provided to us, that made it very easy to walk through and see how they were.
This includes all the IT stuff. Sure.
Yeah, there are shared costs as part of that $33 million general services budget. Some are chargebacks to districts, some are costs that they pick up. It's a variation. They generally don't keep much of a fund balance. They spend the dollars directly. We have an understanding, and you haven't been through the cycle a lot. The understanding when times get rough, though, there are decisions to make on what can be supported anymore. The ISDs over the last several years have been pinched pretty tight as far as increases in foundation. They don't get to count students directly, so they get Section 81 dollars. They've been pinched pretty tight on their funding, so they've been doing a lot with not so much.
I will put it to a vote on the motion that has been moved and seconded, that the Board of Education adopt the attached approval resolution regarding the proposed WISD 2022-2023 budget. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Moving on to the Creekside Kitchen walk-in evaporator and condenser replacement. Our packet includes a recommendation letter and a bid tabulation from Food and Nutrition Director Jennifer Madison regarding the purchase of a kitchen walk-in evaporator and condenser replacement. This purchase would be paid from the Food and Nutrition Fund balance.
I move that the Board of Education awards the contracts for the kitchen walk-in evaporator and condenser replacement to refrigeration and mechanical services for an amount not to exceed $59,362 paid from the Food and Nutrition balance.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
So overall, this was part of our bids for mechanical equipment. Food and nutrition, we have about a 10% free and reduced lunch rate for district. The last couple of years, we've had, through federal changes, we've been able to provide free breakfast and lunch to all students. So what that's done is they've built up a bit of a reserve. They are only allowed to spend the reserve on actual equipment and upgrades. So this is part of some planned process they were planning for anyway. So there's some other things they're working on right now. It is a good use of the funds. The options would be take it out of bond funds or designated food and nutrition reserves, which can only be spent on these types of items.
Is this something that we put in like the Series 2?
No, we planned for food nutrition to pay for this.
Okay. Any other discussion? It's been moved and seconded that the Board of Education award contracts for the kitchen walk-in evaporator and condenser replacement to Refrigeration and Mechanical Services, Inc. for amount not to exceed $59,362 paid from the Food and Nutrition Fund balance. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Has been awarded. All right, we are on to our discussion items, which is the establishment of a multi-generational activities and village advisory committee.
So at the last meeting, the board directed me to do research on how other school districts and communities manage a recreation village. There are very few recreation villages and school districts around the state. I spoke with Celine, which is one of the close ones. They actually run the entire CARES village through their community education department. So it is just part of their community ed budget that comes forward on an annual basis to the full board. They do have a direct split with the senior center, and then the rest goes to managing community education. East Grand Rapids, we have been playing phone tag, text tag, email tag. I got close to making it before the board meeting, but didn't happen. I was in another meeting when I became it. So hopefully tomorrow I get more answers. The interesting one is that I found, so Alpena is interesting. So Alpena County has one school district, Alpena Public Schools, it's the entire district. And then they have an ISD, but then what they did is they separated between the townships. They ended up going as a complete county and did an Alpena County Youth and Recreation Village, very similar. And their governance structure is really interesting. So they do have a committee that is comprised of representatives from each community in the county. And they make formal recommendations to the full board of commissioners. So it's a very similar setup to what we started to discuss, where the actual elected board appoints members to be on this committee. They use trustees from the local area, but what they end up doing is the board of commissioners actually, or the council, the board of commissioners actually has to approve the annual funding. They do everything on a grant basis. And what they do is they make the seats match on the 2-year terms that they're sitting in, with 6-year terms for school boards, which is really common for school boards. I don't know if you're gonna get volunteers that are 6 years. So after looking through how their structure is, and I'm still working, I'll track down East Grand Rapids any day. So after looking through it, putting it together and then having some conversation with other setups that are similar, is that the board could create a formal board multi-generationals activity village advisory committee. And you'd want to set up the number to be a number you could get a consistent quorum. So generally, committees like that, you go for like 9 to 15, somewhere in that range, because you don't want too many, but you need to have enough to be representative. And you want to find a number that you can get at least 50% regular attendance, so you can get a quorum that is a reasonable number of people. What the committee would be empowered to do is to create long-term and short-term plans for the use of the funds. And all members should be formally appointed by the Board of Ed. So it'll take a couple of transitions. There would have to be an initial board or an initial committee appointed. Because they would be appointed and allowed governmental function, they'd be subject to Open Meetings Act. So all meetings would have to be in public, et cetera. So then what would happen is you'd have to set up like the initial group and then start to stagger some terms so that it had consistency, because it's a 20-year village. So you want to give it consistency so that it's not turning over completely every 2 or 3 years. So members should include some combination of whoever is the superintendent over the next 20 years, probably the CFO, because it's going to be presented as a budget in the end, as part of the budget recommendation to the full board. Because the funds would have to be operated a large portion through community education director would make sense. And then at least one elected school board member rep would make sense. Then a couple members representing the Dexter Senior Center, probably a representative from the Dexter Community Fund, which is a local fund that supports programming in the community. And then somewhere between 4 and 8 residents representing fine arts, adult recreation and enrichment, youth recreation and enrichment, and general community interest. Whatever that number works out to, and whatever criteria, but it would be ideal to have a broad set of perspectives so that the funds don't go only to athletic. They don't only go to youth, they don't only go to adults, and try to get a balance. The school board would have to formally appoint the members and then stagger. I would recommend 3-year terms. It rotates in a decent way to be able to keep it always rotating. Maybe set a max of terms, that would be a decision point. When vacancies occur, there could be recommendations to fill the vacancies, but the board would have to approve the individual, because you'd be turning over your elected authority to another group to do the heavy lifting. So it would make sense to recommend or to formally approve members of this committee, and then stagger the terms. And I just toyed with some numbers. So maybe set up some initial 2-year and 3-year terms, but stagger those, so some are 2, some are 3. And then start to work in some 3-year term rotations so that the whole group doesn't turn over all the time. And probably open them on a fiscal year cycle. Because our fiscal year is July 1 through June 30th, it would make sense to keep it on a similar cycle so that it's part of the budgeting process. We can craft policy, et cetera. This is the first chance to really talk about it. I wanted to give you enough to talk about. Hoping this is enough that we start talking. So I know what to do next. Other than finally getting in contact with these grade
With Alpena, how did they, or how big was their initial committee and where did they pull?
They use, I can actually pull it up. Their committees, actually, they use the elected representatives from the different townships.
And that's not a good model
Which-
for here, because all of our townships are split. All of those townships, if I followed you, would be the entire township. And so you would have people with school personalities at best.
Right. So that's where, but the structure made sense to have a formal committee that had authority in a cycle that made sense, making recommendations to the full board, where the full board didn't have to manage it, but has the legal oversight, because the school district would be the legal entity collecting the tax dollars, so you are the only ones elected to make decisions on it. But you can empower a committee to do the heavy lifting, to engage the community, represent the different constituencies, and do the heavy work.
It also gives it feel, as we've talked at the village meetings, and how to proceed. I think there's a real desire to make this feel like a community activities group and not a school group. And so by having an advisory committee made up of folks that got primarily community interests, that would help accomplish that.
So I did a little research, and actually I have a friend who's retired from Louisville. Louisville Kentucky Metro Parks and Recreation, he's executive park administrator there. He's also, just his background as mattress from Duke in the same field. He's a certified Parks and Recreation executive by the National Recreation Park Association. Some of the stuff what he said here, he pulled some stuff, he pulled a bunch of stuff. Some of it didn't really apply to, some of it did. But we talked to him, when I talked to him, he gave some recommendations. Some of the events what they have up there, some slightly different. Staggered 3-year terms, he recommends doing that based on experience. We should be on it. He's saying superintendent of schools or assistant superintendent as a rep. Definitely the finance representative of the school finance team. And a board of education representative. Also, and this kind of may differ from what Dick just said or what Alpena is doing, recommended just one from each tax municipality or pay taxes from, but not an elected official. His reason for elected officials is because you don't want to get caught into we just want someone who wants to report back, represent their community, if they don't attend those meetings, but not to get into make a political matter. GS that he has seen in the past, we've seen some political fights. Townships around, so it's one. Who else? Then he kind of, who else should be out there? Some of these he said, depending on the size, he says usually 9 to 15. Anything bigger than that is going to be too hard. Anything smaller than that, you're not going to get a good representative. And who should be on it? Some of these people he was recommending that if they're a representative, they can still be from one of the other townships. That could count. Or back with someone, something similar to the out on here, senior citizen rep, senior center rep, community education, arts and crafts, sports. He actually recommended 2 for sports, one for women's sports, one for men's sports, or I'll say kids, the boys and girls sports. And that's just to show, make sure it does get over balance between one or the other. Then there's others he kind of threw out there, but online, I think it has all kind of parts.
think the notion that you had of having balance, whether it's exactly to sports or sport, whatever, makes sense. I think that you might have a hard time getting that balance if you look at having people from townships, because which township's going to be a particular perspective instead of being able to draw people from the community at large. If you really had full townships, if it was every township was fully a part of the district, it might make a little more sense. I think it's really kind of strange. The reason that we're doing this is at least partly because no other entity has a base that you can work from.
That might be too hard.
I think that
So
it's
if I-
important to have, I think it's really important to have a balance from the community. And so if you have 4 to 8 at large from the community, you really have the ability to look at the different backgrounds and perspectives that you want to have balanced out. So, sorry.
That's okay. I just wanted to share that I work with the Huron River Watershed Council, which is a conglomeration of different municipalities throughout the watershed. And the way that we appoint it, it's a part of our bylaws. It's basically a percentage of the population that is in the watershed. So Lodi Township is a very small portion that is within the township. Each township gets at least one, but then the city of Ann Arbor has 4, so there's different, actually 2, and then the county has a couple. So depending on the percentage of population, you can do it that way and have some equity. And I do think it's important to have representation throughout the watershed, but on a scale basis, so that we're not building the electoral culture. Interesting.
I think one difference in what you're describing is everybody has much more of a single focus on what they're trying to do. Here, we're looking at anything from seniors to all age groups and all different kinds of things, from athletics to fine arts to different kinds of things. And so I think that's a difference in terms of what the charter is.
I mean, I would add that, I would disagree slightly in that they're all working toward a common good, which is healthy water. And how you get to that end is it may be different depending on their perspective, but I think that everybody hopefully in this group would be working toward the common goal of community-wide health. So.
Go with townships, the only challenge to look at is like, here's Freedom Township, we just carved, there's a handful of houses. Lodi, a handful of houses. We go through Lima, and most of these are farmland. So it's a handful of residents. We get into Scioto, we carve it up a little funny. The city of Dexter, we completely encompass. Dexter Township, we carve that up in no particular order. You look over in Northfield Township, we pick up 2 chunks of land over there, and then you get up into Livingston, up in Hamburg, and we're kind of carving funny there too. I mean, we even have elections over in the Pinckney School District. They actually use a Pinckney building to vote on district's rec millage. So that's where we're trying to think through, because I originally looking at Alpena, I was saying, okay, but why don't we look at townships? But then I started staring at the map.
And I think at first I thought that it was a good idea, but I think to Dick's point, I think what we're really looking for is people that have interests in all the different kinds of that want to be represented, like the community ed, the sports, but also really specifically like fine arts, like the community band, the Dexter community players, I think, would like to have a seat at the table. Obviously the senior center, and maybe even putting in like the robotics team, like some of them, or another like enrichment as well. So I think that, to my mind, I think that's really something that we want to make sure. I mean, I like the population idea. I think that's great, but then I think what happens when you get like, everybody from you get like a representative from Scioto Township who's all in for like sports, and then Webster, it's all in for sports, and then we become very sports. And I don't want this to be one dimensional. We want to make sure that everyone in the community is being represented
represented by what everybody's paying for.
I also think when I looked at that list, it sounds like it's very reflective from Dan's friend, which is really nice to hear that somebody in a different state that's been doing this too has a very similar list. I'd also say that there's a lot of people that probably wear more than one hat. I know I wear two of them right now. And so I think that if you could probably have a pretty good cross-reference of people from a lot of different walks of life very easily, and representative of townships too. So I think it's a really good start. I think it really does hash out what we're looking for.
Yeah, I really like the basic structure that's been outlined. I agree with everything that Melanie was saying here in terms of people wearing multiple hats. And I would love to see us, however this pans out, if we're writing a policy about how this committee is formed, I would love to see us prioritize diversity in that policy, which would then lend towards sort of prioritizing people who are wearing multiple hats. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but I'm fairly certain there's 5 registered voters in Lenawee County.
Livingston, there's
Livingston
one
County,
quarter
thank
of
you.
Livingston, it's like.
Yeah, so I think
It's
there's
right
5 registered voters. I think one of these townships has 12 registered voters. So I don't think that's a great way for us to prioritize when there are sort of values that we're trying to communicate with this knowledge. But I think it's certainly something that we can take into account while we're looking for representation.
Yeah, that we don't love our freedom township friends.
Absolutely. I just don't know if those 12 want to do this. So.
Well, and if it's to the structure of the organization, we don't have, it's not a mandatory. At least our structure is not mandatory. Not every single community has a representative. So, I mean, it's to.
I think the value that it's really looking at community interest rather than saying there's going to be somebody from this particular, that represents sports, you're going to represent something else, except for senior citizens, which have a stake in their particular piece of what we're trying to accomplish here. The rest of it's more community in general of all ages. So I think that there might have been a tendency to say we ought to make sure that Little League's represented or football's represented or fine arts. And I think that this probably is stronger with the notion that it's people with a community interest. Presumably make sure there's some balance there, but it's not a formula. It's not a check off the box kind of thing.
Because some places might, they might come and go.
Focus on community balance.
Yeah, we got to do the community balance and balance on activity. I'm not saying that to do like Little League or YFL or soccer. We need people who, at large, represents recreation and sports. That's a big part of this community, whether you're on board or not with that. And there's also the other parts of that, the club sports too, that are big and coming. But I just don't want to have it see up also. I know we need to focus on seniors, but I don't want to, so focus on seniors, we forget about everybody else.
Let's do it.
No, I'm just saying, the balance is, I think, we're all speaking about, right?
I like Nolan's point that you probably find a lot of people that want that.
Add some time.
Seniors I know are busier than most of us. Well, I just want to make sure that we don't use the center of the city as the general guidance for the whole, what we're taxing the whole population. I mean, there's different needs in different parts of the community. People may need a vague support. So there's a lot of different activities that are not currently provided by the district. And I think are important. So it gets back to diversity and inclusion of the law.
And the board will have a chance to set that tone with the initial board.
This was the initial discussion. Now I need to keep refining. We didn't have a timeline quite yet. We needed to find what I could get together. The Alpino one was really interesting how I kind of stumbled upon that. It was looking forward to talking to East Grand Rapids. I can have some policy drafts started, what it could look like. If a structure like this sounds like a starting point, we'll start to kind of think through what policy would look like. And then we can meet with policy committee, start hashing out.
I think it's going to be important to recognize, you're talking about there's not a lot of school districts that have this, but it's because of the geography of our district. It's not because school districts don't have an interest and people aren't served through another mechanism where it's a different geographical community than what we have.
We're finding the ones, like even in the short conversations with school districts, and I don't know if EGR is the same way, they just run it through the community ed program and it's just part of the budget. Which, that's not the goal of this. This is really creating a recreation program. District-wide, including for all ages.
Yeah, the EGR website seems to suggest that, almost, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, I lived right on the street there for a few years and it's a small, it's like Dexter, the pond. So that's what they've got a lot of golf there too. So I can imagine it's on a smaller basis of what we would do. Essentially.
I can't tell you how many calls I got as soon as the word in the live article came out. I've been getting calls from all over the state. Hey, guys do it? And then now help us. We're trying to figure out how to help our seniors. We're trying to figure out how to do this.
With this, this is why I make the question on. Is that going to like 300 of the budget community services?
We would probably go in that area. That community service budget, community service fund was set up to be a separate fund that would represent the community ed department. So it'll most likely be in that area, but we gotta work with it, share it. So
Voters approve it. You might actually say we're actually supporting it down the line.
they have been, I don't know, like during the pandemic, we have subsidized services in order to make it. We had a couple years ago, we were at $5,000 balance. And then a decade ago, we were closer. It's gone back.
I would suggest just in the 4 to the 8 where we had the youth, I did like Dan's point of having focus on girls and boys too. Because I will say that even going through the summer camps, what my daughter could do was far below what my son could do in the offerings. And I'm not slighting offerings by any means. Part of her age, but the offerings, I would love to have a representative from the gender.
In the summer camps, we just try to take coaches
Oh,
to do it.
it's
Anybody that
fantastic.
wants to add them, we'll add them. They're building fast.
It's fantastic. I'm not slighting that by any, but I think that's a great point to make sure that, that's representative.
Going back to Daniel's question or issue, whatever, it would be its own separate budgeting entity.
Right. Basically, like 300.
In some fashion, it would have its own responsibilities for budgeting and accounting against the budget.
The always I'm saying is that's going to be a lot. Chop fund.
Yeah.
$7,000 a year.
To Jennifer's point, I did like the idea of making sure that they're are represented somehow. I don't know how to do that. But it's a big part of our community.
Bill, the city might be complaining more about not having representation. Broader district.
My guess is subdivision, that's the way it's set up. I think Dexter Township, Webster Township would have for SIO probably. SIO. It's getting line on freedom. Organize.
As I look over student representatives, I was thinking maybe that would be something to add.
Having a meeting.
Yes.
Gotta get the most money's worth at 80.
That's right.
City council has different student representatives on their different committees.
And then one of the decisions after, as we work through a policy, would be deciding who has voting rights, who doesn't on this group. And that'll be, there's a lot of committees like the superintendent, CFO, community director, the staff, they're ex officio, they don't really have voting. Sometimes you want them to, it just depends. I've been on school foundation boards where like for the EFD, I'm just kind of there. But I've been where I'm voting. Yeah, with both. There's good and bad.
I would think that the members at the board.
So that'd be part of the working through
If the staff can't sell it, it probably shouldn't fly.
But that does impact the quorum at times too. That's the other issue. You get people that have to be there, who are volunteering. Bigger number. Good starting point. Good start.
So we are moving on to our second opportunity for public participation. During public comment, each speaker for the second time is allotted a maximum of 3 minutes for a total of 15 minutes unless otherwise notified. Each speaker will be asked again to announce his, her, their name and district of residence. And if he, she, they represent any organization or agency, no person may speak more than once on the same subject during the single meeting. If you spoke at the first public participation opportunity, you want to speak at the second one, it just has to be on a different subject. And just as a reminder, all speakers addressing the board shall take into consideration rules of common courtesy, and that please stick to matters that pertain to Dexter community school districts and concerns. Is there anyone who wishes to speak at the second opportunity for public participation? See, this is what I mean when I say, I see someone, I see someone rushing the podium.
Here to speak on the rec village.
Bill, can I say your name? Bill?
Oh, Bill Bernard. And same thing. And this is why I am so hesitant on put it on the ballot before, because it's a nice discussion. I think we rushed it too much. I don't see how we can get the answers by election time to be fully informed. Now, if you want to find out about East Grand Rapids millage proposal or the rec village, go online. It tells you everything right there. I researched it, I found it, and I will have many more questions after I read the survey that comes out about the way the money's going to be going about these different programs. And if what just happened over the weekend is an indication, I know the community in just one short day is very upset. I appreciate that the school has put forward 2 week or 2 free programs, or activities for the youth. But here we are, we left out one important group out of that whole thing. K through 2 only had one program they were able to select. And the board thought that was okay. Now, how can you think one program for our young kids, K through 2, is sufficient? They had basketball to choose from. That was it. And by 8:20 Sunday morning, when they opened up registration, there was only 5 spots left. In 20 minutes, everything filled up except for 5 spots. And of course, today, I understand, I don't know if it's true or not, that every one of them programs have come off the board.
No, they're still on there. We just had to adjust up behind the scenes.
Okay, well, then that is maybe what,
We
you
had a
know,
waiting list to let them in.
right, maybe that's got on at a bad time and saw it was gone, but it seemed very, very odd, all of a sudden it's gone. So, board, if you're looking to get this millage passed, you gotta look good for every kid. You just neglected our young kids. The kids that need it the most. They need the ones, they're the ones that have been hurt by COVID the most. Their socialization, everything's been shot out of their friends. Like I said, I appreciate the 2 weeks, but we forgot one big part of our community. That's the way it's gonna work in this rec program. People are saying, forget it. We're not gonna do it. So I would appreciate looking at that. Like I said, I'll have many more questions after I see the survey tomorrow. And what questions and answers, I'll compare them to the East Grand Rapids one, and we'll come up with, because there's a lot of financial questions to be directed. That'll be a one discussion. I thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who wishes to speak? Okay, we will move on to our board comments.
I just want to say, speaking to the students who are here today, it was really exciting to hear their presentation. As I just said, I work for the Watershed Council, so they could come and give a presentation, and our staff would just be elated if they heard the inspiration that these students are providing. One thing they didn't comment on is phosphorus, so just a little plug in there, phosphorus is a big one. And otherwise, thanks to the teachers and staff for coming. We do really appreciate it.
I also just wanted to say thank you to the Wiley students and the staff involved in that program. I feel like I say this every time a program is presented here, but like, I really wish I could be in school again and do all these programs because they all look so exciting. And I just love seeing all the kids take their roles so seriously, and you can tell we're just very well prepared, and I just know how much work went into that, so.
I just like to do a little additional recognition for Hayden. I think that became a difficult time, but I think you've done an excellent job, and I think that you brought a new level of organization and representation across the district beyond what I've seen in the past. Appreciate the fact that you folks are going out, looking at the different buildings, and talking to people at all the levels, and giving us a cross section of what's happening in the different schools. And, I think that's a real plus. Appreciate bringing that together.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a real pleasure. I enjoyed it. Better than some of the other extracurriculars I've done. But no, it's been great. Enjoyed learning a lot of different things. Some things have gone over my head, but some things have been made sense.
That's
Yeah.
I'd just like to say good luck to Aiden with everything. Really appreciate your service. It's kind of changed how it's been done for the better. So I think, I too also loved the students presentation. My daughter's at Wiley, and I knew some of the kids and the teachers. It was really cool, and I could not imagine my daughter doing any of that. She would not, and I don't think I would have back in that age. So that was super impressive. And I learned stuff. And I'd also like to thank the community members who spoke on the negotiations issue, from community members to teachers. There were several of my kids' former teachers and current teachers that spoke. Trust me, your words are not falling on deaf ears. We moved to this community in part because we loved the reputation that we heard from everybody about the teachers, and we have not been disappointed. And I share your desire to make sure that we do everything we can to make sure that teachers and staff feel that they're.
All right. We will just know that there are informational items provided in our packet, including the awesome board bulletin. And then there's a motion to
I move that the Board of Education move into closed session for the purpose of discussing